And with that, we are live for episode 229 of Trek Live. A few minutes late, we were working through some technical glitches, but made it through okay, and we should be here and good to go to talk Strange New Worlds. How you doing this morning, Dan?
Doing good. Working through some technical issues, like Bill said, but I've been anticipating this episode of Trek Live, I think, since the end of season one of Strange New
Yeah.
Worlds. So I'm really excited to talk about it this morning.
Yeah, we never really had a chance during season one of Strange New Worlds to talk here on the show. That was kind of right in the midst of baby season on the Trek Live Dan side of the equation, and we were kind of on hiatus during that as season one was coming out. So, um, yeah, it should be really cool to be able to kind of keep tabs on season two, talk about it as we go, and dedicate kind of a whole episode here to the vibe of season two, 2 episodes in, what we're kind of feeling as it gets rolling. So, anybody in the chat, if you happen to be watching, feel free to share your thoughts on Strange New Worlds as a whole. The first 2 episodes of season two, collectively, independently, whatever you got, we're eager to hear and talk about it. Before we do that, though, usually we do our rewatch recap, and we can definitely touch on that. But I do feel like any current Star Trek kind of conversation today here on June 20, what is it, 24th, 25th. Uh,
Yeah,
you know where this is going. We kind of
yeah.
have to at least touch on the sort of news of the day, which is really sucks. Star Trek Prodigy is kind of in limbo at this point. Paramount Plus is going to be taking it off the platform here in the coming days. Season two is being completed, and according to the folks working on the show, and I think in the Variety article that came out, it's being shopped around and could potentially land on some other service somewhere potentially.
I think that's why they're taking it off Paramount Plus.
Yeah,
Because I think if it wasn't being shopped around, I think it would just remain there as just this season, this 2 season type of entity
hmm
on the platform. I think they're trying to like shop it around. I think
yeah.
that's why they're taking off the platform.
And Aaron Walke, who's like the pseudo showrunner, well, is the showrunner of season two apparently, and was a big, you know, influential writer in the first season. Um, his big social media presence, talks a lot about the show. It sounds like he's got some guarded optimism that maybe there's a somewhat happy ending here. Speaking for myself, I kind of, for the last forever, kind of, just because of the nature of streaming in general and kids shows and the kind of content that Prodigy is, I figured 2 seasons, 40 episodes is probably going to be maybe it anyway. Um, so at this point, I I hope it finds a home. I hope it finds a physical media release. I hope we get to see it. I hope it ends up in a place where it's available for fans who want to watch it, and it's not a lost show. I think that's never happened to Star Trek before. It's always had some, whether it's running in syndication or it's got a physical media release, whether it was in the old days on VHS tapes that were being put out, or obviously on DVD and Blu-ray, now on the streaming services. It's I think it's really important for a franchise like this to not have that happen. That's the most disheartening thing. It's not even the cancellation. It's not that it's going to end after season two, potentially. Aaron Walke is even kind of sounding somewhat optimistic, which he should. He works on the show, that if it goes to a new home and they love it and it goes well there, that maybe it could continue. I'm certainly not holding my breath for that. I think that would be sugar on top at this point. I just want to see those episodes someday and have them not be lost in the ether, and have Prodigy be sort of this half-existing show that, there's a Blu-ray release of 10 episodes. There's another 10 that aired and were on Paramount Plus for a while but aren't anymore, and not on physical media, and a season two that was produced and never seen. Like that, that's really sad, and we definitely don't want to see that happen. That's a nasty place to be, and it's a little startling for like the current picture at Paramount Plus and the streaming landscape as a whole. I think this is I think this is a lesson to Star Trek fans everywhere. Like, don't rest on your laurels. If you love it, consider buying it on physical media. I know it's an expense, and it's a commitment that not everybody's super into. But you can't trust the streaming services to leave things up, indefinitely forever. If it becomes advantageous for them financially to, take things down or shed them or put them in the vault, that's what they'll do. And I think this week kind of tells us that Star Trek's not protected from that because it's Star Trek and it's a bigger property than like an independent show, like a single show out there. It could happen, and your best protection against being able to watch it for sure is to own it if it's available. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Even when you even support, a streaming service by like buying their subscription, it still doesn't protect you
No.
even from themselves. So yeah, it's really tough. I think as Star Trek fans, I think we should definitely just remember that we're not gonna have a new show release every. I know we got kind of spoiled a
We
little bit
did.
here and there,
We did.
big time with a lot of projects in the works and stuff. But yeah, tough situation. But I guess it's the reality that we face, especially as there's a bunch of stuff just happening, behind the scenes. There's a writer strike. They're trying to figure
Yeah.
out
There's a lot.
a lot of different stuff with that, and so it's I think it's going to tighten the streaming service belt a little bit. So
100%.
yeah, again, I'll just echo what Bill said. I guess is just do what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack. I think we're going to look back at 2022 as like the peak golden year of this era where all the shows were in production, nothing had been canceled yet. Prodigy was getting ready to end after season 3, but or Picard was getting ready to end after season 3. Like we knew that in 2022, but it was ending on its terms. Discovery was seeming healthy. All these, we had the 5 shows in production. We had the many weeks in a row. We had episodes airing from all the shows. I think we got, like you said, I think we kind of got spoiled by that and maybe had this vision in our minds that, we were in for that for a while. I know I was. I kind of fell in love with that idea, and we enjoyed it while we could. And for now, it's going to be a little more spaced out. It's going to be a little more limited in terms of what the content is. Fortunately, the shows that are running are good. As we're about to talk about, Strange New Worlds is rocking and rolling. It's a really good, iteration of Star Trek. I think it's kicking butt and taking names. So I think it's really important for us to enjoy what we have and support what's being made and what's healthy out there, and be there for it and hope for the best.
Yeah, because you think about it, this is a strategic kind of move here. Like they released it on a Friday, and after this
Which really sucks.
strong episode. Yeah.
This weekend we should have been talking about Ad Astra per Aspera, which we're about to do. We're going to do it anyway, and a lot of people still are. But this weekend certainly should have been dominated by like a really great episode of the new Star Trek dropping and people unpacking it and talking about what they loved and what they thought of it, hot, cold, and different. But the Prodigy news dump on a Friday definitely sort of took the wind out of that episode's sails a little bit, which really stinks. I think the same thing happened while Picard was running. They dropped the Discovery news, and similarly, I think that happened on a Friday, and there was a really good episode of Picard, and people were pumped, and all of a sudden, the wind gets taken out of your sails a little bit. So that's getting a little old and stinks, but it is what it is. We're going to power on, and we're going to talk about Strange New Worlds today. Let's just get right into it. We'll talk more rewatch stuff down the line. We've covered our rewatches at length. We got a little bit of a late start today, and I want to spend a lot of time on Strange New Worlds. So, kind of just generally, like 2 episodes in, I think we'll talk about each episode independently, individually. Certainly as we get rolling here, but. How does it feel to have it back? What do you think of the show in general? Now that we kind of are rocking and rolling into season 2,
It feels really good to have the show back. These first 2 episodes feel really different.
Very different.
First episode was just so like really entourage. Like everybody has something to do. Everybody's working on something um, and then you kind of get the complete opposite where Screw's got to take a back seat, and it's just kind of this really sleepy little, not sleepy, but just quiet little melodrama. It just the variety here is really good. So really did enjoy the first two episodes, um, and obviously that second episode really felt like a really classic episode of Star Trek, and really is interesting because it's probably going to go down as Strange New World's best, but it's it's just interesting how early it is in the season.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all that. I love having it back. It's a really good. I mean, what we were hoping for with all these shows kind of running concurrently, it feels like really good medicine to Picard, which I loved. I mean, Picard season 3, I like was kind of like the answer to my prayers for the last 25 years and delivered on a lot of the things that I really wanted. But very different thing. It was pretty grim and pretty dark and pretty urgent and had the certainly very serialized kind of single single-minded story approach. But this is such a different animal. The way that Star Trek should be, like it can be all kinds of things, and just within just Strange New Worlds, and kind of not comparing it to Picard and what else has come. Like you said, the two episodes couldn't be more different. I really like the way you phrased the first one. I think on Twitter you said it was like a swashbuckling adventure, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's how I look at it. And episode 1 was a little more divisive. I think if you just watched people talk about it online, people got hung up on some small technical things, and people had mixed feelings about some of the other bigger, more prominent story elements too. And I'm a little mixed on it too. I don't love it. I think it's solid. I think it's a decent season premiere, and there are things in that episode I really love. Episode 2 I think is outstanding. I think it's truly great Star Trek, and um, kind of a model for what Star Trek can do. And it's been a while since we've had. Although like Discovery Unification 3, I saw in your Twitter thread, you were kind of archiving a bunch of the courtroom drama kinds of episodes, and Unification 3 is definitely one of them, and a really good one at that. So yeah, it's not fair to say that they haven't done courtroom stuff recently. They have, but having it be so like leaning into all of the courtroom drama tropes, and the flavors of like legal TV here in this week's episode was really cool.
Yeah, I like the it felt like, I don't know, there was like drama and ups and downs and
Yeah.
uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that people say they've done courtroom dramas many times before, but this one just felt really different, and I like that they put the Strange New Worlds kind of spin on it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not a negative to the episode. I think
No.
it makes it better.
Agreed. And we'll talk more deeply about episode 2 here as we get going, but as we get further into this. But let's focus on the Broken Circle, the season premiere, real quick. Um, I think the biggest surprise for people. I don't know about you. We haven't really talked in depth. I kind of know we know what we think, and generally talked kind of informally. But from what I gather, one of the big surprises with the premiere is how little it features Pike. It kind of sidelines Pike. To kind of go get the ball rolling on what we get in episode 2. And there's some stories online about the production side of that was right around the time he had his baby, and there were some considerations along those lines for like how to schedule the season, and some of those things were planned. But really interesting choice. I think I kind of like it. It reminds me of like now that I'm watching Deep Space Nine, and even the Next Generation as the show goes on. Like there are episodes where Picard or Cisco or Janeway are very supporting, or almost not even really in it. It focuses on other people, and it doesn't have to be completely centered on the captain every time. I think that's to the strength of the show to build that ensemble out and let either the full group or different portions of them, different combinations of them, different elements of the cast carry the show. The Broken Circle, I think, really leans into that and gives the supporting cast a lot of fun things to do, and they kind of take the lead completely. Were you surprised, like going in? Were you surprised that Pike wasn't really
I
there.
I wasn't really surprised, but it also I wasn't really like looking for it. Like I was
Hmm.
just it was just okay for me. I
Yeah.
think um, that's the beauty of this show. I think that the cast is strong enough to be able to carry the show. I love Pike, and he does some really good stuff, but
Hmm.
um, I think it was just fine. I don't know. I don't think bringing Pike into the episode. I'm not sure if it makes a better episode.
Hmm. I think it doesn't. I think the whole strength of it
And,
to me is the
yeah,
testing of Spock and putting Spock in kind of through the ringer a little bit.
yeah, and yeah, it's just yeah. I had didn't have many thoughts about that. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Good. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it definitely is setting up what I think is going to be kind of like in season one. It sets out right out of the gate that this Pike knows his future thing is going to be a big, like, for what in terms of Strange New Worlds' style, like the serialized element of the season, the way season one kind of focuses on and touches on as it goes, this Pike thing that he's dealing with, um, the knowing of his future. I get the sense that the way season two is structured, and or the way season two episode one is structured, that this Spock Chapel dynamic is going to be a big running thread, and his kind of unlocking of his emotions at the end of last season, and what that's kind of doing to him. To me, that's my favorite thing about 201, the Broken Circle. I love that. See, to me, and I've seen a lot of people kind of question this, and they struggle with the romantic angle with Spock and Chapel, and how does it reconcile with TOS? I think it reconciles with it perfectly, and we just don't see where it's going yet. Like, I don't see, we don't know how it's going to connect yet. But in my mind, if they're doing what I think they're doing, I think, portraying the swing that Spock experiences back to Vulcan
gonna swing
logic.
back. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
I
Yep.
think I think we're
Yeah.
seeing the beginning of that. Like, I think, and I've always felt like when you watch the Naked Time very early in TOS, there's a scene with Spock and Chapel, and it's so early in the show, it really implies like a history, like that things had gone on before we dropped in on the show, and that these people, had been on the ship prior to that episode and prior to the beginning of the show as we saw it, and that things had happened and it was complicated, and they don't lean into that the whole time in the show. It's not a big emphasis in TOS, but that to me opens the door for stuff happened and there's complicated, history there. And I think there's, because of the fact that it's so not a focus of TOS, it's there, it's on the periphery. Every once in a while they kind of check in on the Chapel pining after Spock kind of thing. And it's dated in the way that 1960s TV, just is inherently. So it's not perfect, but I think it's limited enough where there's enough room to build extra context around it and strengthen it in TOS. You can't change what's on the screen, but it can certainly change how we perceive it and the headcanon stuff that we can bring into TOS for the next 55 years of its life. And I love that they're doing that. So I was completely on board with all the Spock Chapel stuff in season one and in the Broken Circle.
Yeah. Kind of both. For me, I think what came to mind initially for me was the Galileo 7 episode where,
Yeah.
Spock is in the TOS episode. He's a little bit more reserved to go on a kind of away mission, and I think that's. You mentioned the swing back. I think that's definitely it feels in line for me because, um, he does make a very dramatic and very emotional decision in that episode. But I think
Mhm.
that was just kind of, I don't know, and maybe that's I am completely wrong here, but I think um, that checks out with this episode where he
Mhm.
does make a really big emotional decision to just go
Yeah.
um, and go on this kind of wild goose chase. Um, so yeah, I definitely buy everything that Spock is doing in this episode. Um, the cowboy diplomacy is this is a different era where
Yeah. I agree
um,
with that too.
starships
Mhm.
get stolen and big things happen. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, and as far as story elements go, I like that with the Klingon War stuff. I like
Mhm.
that it isn't just a light switch that we're just friends. I
Yeah.
like that there is some um, some Cold War era stuff going on here, where it's like it's not just like the war is just not completely over.
Mhm.
There is some subterfuge and some Cold War stuff in it.
which again connects perfectly with TOS. Like for all the stuff that people say like doesn't connect, and that you have to
Yeah,
like twist and turn and make it
yeah,
work. Like to me, that's perfect. Like the way that this kind of establishes that there is like a Cold War brewing and that there's continuing tensions and stuff going on around the margins of the Federation Klingon relationship post war. Makes sense because that's how it's portrayed in TOS. That like literally it was designed to be an allegory for the Cold War, like with the United States and Russia and the Soviet Union. So this kind of to me sets up this. These are the kinds of things that are happening in those relations, and it's not an open war, but there's stuff going on that's problematic and a challenge for both sides. It's not a shooting war, but it's there's tension, and not everything's clean. So
in the trouble of troubles, like
yeah,
there's yeah, it's yeah.
I think it connects fine. I'm really happy with that. I love the way the Klingons. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, we were both pretty non. I mean, if I remember correctly, neither one of us got really hung up on the Klingon stuff in Discovery season one. I mean, that was a major controversy at the time. How do you feel about the way that they presented the Klingons here? Kind of going back to the sort of TOS movies, early TNG kind of appearance of the Klingons. Were you happy with it? Do you have any feelings either way? Like, what do you think?
I don't really have any feelings either way.
Yeah, I
but
mean, I'm like, whatever. The Klingons.
I'm super happy with it because I'm guessing it's a faster and easier like production type of.
I would think so. Yeah.
And it's like it's hard because in my head canon, like these Klingons that are in Discovery are like the small little sect, and then there is different types of Klingons throughout the whole empire. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like the appearance of the Klingons has been they've tried to retcon and build in things through Enterprise and how different appearances kind of come and go, but the Klingons have never been consistent. Like they've changed, appearance, several times over the course of the show. Just like the style of bridges have changed. Like the bridge of the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds looks different than it does in TOS, and you kind of have to. It's kind of on you to go with it. It's the artist's interpretation of those events is the way I kind of look at it. It's like looking at a painting versus a photograph of a historic event, except it's in the future. Like they're different, versions of looking at it. And I think that's the only way to like not drive yourself insane in this world that we're in, living with a 55-year-old franchise where we keep doubling back to things that happened before. And they're Klingons. They might look a little different than they did 5 years ago, or 25 years ago, or 50 years ago, but they're Klingons. They act like Klingons. They do Klingon things, and from a story perspective, they're Klingons, and I'm on board. I think they look great. I thought the actors playing them were all awesome. Yet again, I liked that they're not all like. We've talked about this a lot, like having Klingons not be completely all the same. Like these are mining guys, people who are working on like a mining planet, and up to no good with conspiring with Federation citizens who want to make profit too. Like they're not like the honorable warrior Klingons that we get a lot of later on in TNG and Deep Space Nine and such. These are more reminiscent again of like the kinds of Klingons we see in in the original series that are kind of profit driven and looking for resource rich planets to get their hands on dilithium or whatever the valuable substance of the day is. So I really enjoyed that as well. The other thing that this episode is kind of known for at this point, I think, is what I think a lot of people are going to think of it as it's the episode with the big long fisticuffs with Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel. The big kind of middle section of the episode is kind of driven by that, stuck on the fake Federation ship, and kind of fighting off Klingons. Were you on board with the action sequence? Did you think it went on a little long? Did you think it was a little?
Yeah, there I think are times that have felt a little long and drawn out, and a little bit of episode filler here and there. I think we've coined the term a little bit action
Yes.
here.
Yep.
It felt a little bit like that. I think what I liked about that, like the Mbenga Chapel stuff, I like that they're kind of building that relationship, that camaraderie,
Yeah.
and I think there's some really good stuff. Like whenever they use first names, I think that's like trying to like bring back the human side of things. Like
Yeah.
okay, it's over, the war's over. I
Yeah.
think I like that kind of world building.
She calls him
Um,
Joseph. Yeah. That's
yeah,
yeah.
I and that also just brings like a closeness and intimacy that I think that when you use a first name, it's just like,
Mm.
yeah, I really like that. I think it's beautifully acted. I think it's beautifully written. I think before the action scene, I think is really good.
Mm.
But no, I mean, and I'm not saying that I don't like to see like some characters throw down here and there, but I think it was just a touch overdone. So um, yeah, no, I like the Chapel and Manga stuff on the Federation ship for the most part.
Yeah. Stress Free K's in the chat and says it was totally long, but Babs, the actor who plays Mbenga, is an actual black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and that's why he looks so bad, you know what, at it. And
Yeah, natural. Yeah,
he was a natural for sure. He crushes it, and I like that they're incorporating his real life skills. Um, that's pretty cool. But I totally agree. I was talking to Enterprise Extra Trek Ranks, Jim, our friend, and we both kind of took away from the Broken Circle that very reminiscent of Brother, the season 2 episode, the season 2 premiere of Discovery. Like structurally, I think we both felt like love the opening, love the way it's set up, like a cold open through the first act. If you think back to that episode, Pike coming onto the ship and off on this very different mission from season 1. There's a lot of really exciting establishing stuff, and all that works really well. It ends strong, but there's a little portion in the middle where that insert action sequence here kind of thing comes in, and in Brother, it's the little pod sequence through the asteroid field and finding Reno on the busted Federation ship, the Hiawatha. Like a little, like I'm not anti that. I think it goes on a little long and some of it's a little silly, but I'm a little less enthused by it than I am the bookending elements of the episode. I think my review of The Broken Circle and Brother would be exactly the same minus the details, from the structural side of things, for sure. I think it's a solid season premiere. I'm sure that it's setting up things that will play heavily this season. I don't get the sense that we're done with the Mbenga trauma with the Klingons, war veteran stuff, the Spock Chapel stuff. I think we're going to get more of all this. Maybe more Klingon stuff. I got the sense that maybe that's not done. I think we'll continue to see that. So at the end of season 2 and onward, if it's going to be impossible to look at the Broken Circle without the context of what it set up and what it brought to the table beyond its own hour. So it's kind of an incomplete for now in my mind, but
yeah,
I'm thumbs up on it. Not overwhelmingly and not like overly enthusiastically, but I think it's really good and a good time.
Yeah, because there's new characters to introduce. There's the
Pelia.
Spock.
We didn't even talk about
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The Spock emotional stuff that's going to carry weight
Big
throughout
time.
the whole season. Like it's really hard to especially a season premiere. It's really hard to just give it a letter grade right off the bat.
Yeah,
and kind of keep it there. But
right.
We'll see.
Before we move on to episode 2, I do think we have to touch on at least Carol Kane as Pelia, who wasn't in episode 2, is featured in that opening of episode 1 as initially introduced as like a compliance officer with the engineering side of things, a sort of inspector. She's a lanthanite, a long-lived alien species, a la Elorians.
Yeah, TOS, yeah.
A lot of people throwing out there Flynn from Requiem for Methuselah, this person who kind of blended in on Earth and lived lives as like major human,
Yeah. She seems a little bit more subdued.
Yes.
The other guy was,
really putting his thumb on the scales of like Earth history and cultural impact. But yeah, Pelia seems to be, whether or not she's that species or not, whether it's a direct link to Flint from Requiem for Methuselah is to be seen, is yet to be seen. But she's a definite different flavor. I mean, she's got a unique vocal style. Like it's not a style of speaking and voice and accent that we're used to hearing on Star Trek. But I'm here for it. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's different and fresh. And I loved her monologue at the end with Spock about, you know, what's the worst thing about living for almost forever, and it's boredom. Like, you know, that's cool. I think that's in the Enterprise doesn't seem like a boring place, and it's getting to go out on these adventures with people that are all different from each other, and it's kind of what draws all of us to Star Trek. I think is drawing her to the Enterprise, and I'm on board. But that's another kind of divisive element. I got the sense like some people were hot and cold on her. What did you think about Carol Kane?
It's exciting and intriguing. I like that she's not just another retelling of kind of the other type of engineers that we've had before. I think experimental and then also like experience, I think are going to be her two things that I think she's going to be playing on this season. So I'm here for it. That's I think that it just for an engineering slot, I think as a character, I think she feels fresh and new, and I think I'm excited for it. So, yeah, definitely hot for me. I think I really enjoyed her.
Me too. I think
addition.
I think, like I said, that opening that up until they steal the Enterprise and before they get to the planet is like and that's where I'm like enthusiastically thumbs up. The cold open through that and her involvement, and in the end, again with like her big scene with Spock, I think are some of the best things in the episode. So I'm on team Pelia for now. All right, episode 2, at Astra per Aspera, as we talked about, has been really well received, it seems, as the courtroom drama variant of Star Trek. Kind of get the resolution, so to speak, or at least to a degree, of the number one kind of hanging Chad from season 1. She's an Illyrian, she's genetically enhanced, that's illegal, what do we do about that? Really good courtroom drama as far as I'm concerned. I think the guest actor playing the attorney representing number 1 is a huge home run. I think that's some of the best guest star work that we've had in Star Trek. I don't know how you feel about like when you think back like to 2017 and like the non-regular characters, especially one-offs, which are kind of like one-offs are harder to come by in Discovery and Picard because of the serialized nature of it. Some do, people do come and go, but like, there's a subset of recurring characters that are guests. But this is a true, seemingly like one-off, and in the like the TOS vein, TNG vein, and really really great performance, character, carries a lot of the episode, and that's a big highlight to me. I think she's just amazing.
Yeah, she's so good. I think the performance, her character's beautifully written as well, I think. The performance, I think, is just top notch as well. And I'm not sure what happened, but you usually think, at least for me, coming from, some of older Trek, maybe sometimes the guest star isn't as good for whatever reason. But I think with this modern era Trek, it's like, and they've got big shoes to fill when you come in as like this just one-off actor, because even in the first episode, the Klingon commander was really, I think, pretty solid too.
Yeah,
so
very good.
I think these one-off kind of actors just coming in, just swinging for the fences, I think they're just doing a brilliant job. Just the writing is obviously going to be there, but I think it takes a certain actor to be able to step into that and be able to just add to that. So I think she did a really good job.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think her name is, I'm going to mispronounce her name, I'm sure. I haven't watched enough other YouTube videos from of seeing people pronounce the name, but Yedide Badaki, just an amazing performance and just did an incredible job. On Twitter, I've seen her talk about, and people talk about the fact that she's a big Star Trek fan, and was really excited by this opportunity, and that's got to be cool to be an actor and be a fan of the show and know a lot about it and get a role. Not just get a role, but get a great role that like kind of carries an episode and destined to go down as kind of a classic character, I think. This in true Star Trek fashion is an allegory for current times. Some people might say it's on the nose and it's a little too obvious. People said that back in the day. People have always said that about Star Trek. That's sort of kind of par for the course, and I guess it's up for interpretation for like what's the right approach when talking about these things. Do you want to shroud it in very subtle metaphor, or do you just kind of go for it and wear your feelings on your sleeve and like it or not, this is how we feel. Star Trek's kind of always taken the latter approach and just kind of gone for it. This is certainly in tune with that. I was really taken by it. I think because of the non-serialized episodic structure of Strange New Worlds, that offers them this opportunity to kind of take a breather and do something like this, like drop in for a courtroom episode where you can put humanity on trial and talk about these things. The structure of Picard and Discovery doesn't always lend itself to kind of cleanly doing that, at least this directly. So I felt like, oh yeah, Star Trek. Like this reminded me of being a kid and watching TNG and Voyager episodes like Distant Origin and The Measure of a Man and The Drumhead, where they're kind of doing this exact same thing. They're in a courtroom and humanity is on trial. And it's, I was happy with that choice to be that allegorical, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. It's since its conception, it's been like this.
It's in the DNA. It's like that's what Star Trek is.
If you've seen it all and any not even seen it all, just seen like a 90s era show, like there's episodes like this in there. So
very much so.
I just think for the time, I think in anything, even if it was a smaller, something maybe hidden in the metaphors, I think we would still get this reaction. I just think that the state of everything and everyone, I think, is really a really dry field of grass where it just takes a small little match to set the whole thing ablaze. So I don't think I'd probably see the same reaction for a small little thing. So
yeah, agreed. A lot of really good little moments in here too. Really, one little thing that is not even like that key. It's not part of the courtroom specific story. That really stands out to me is the little scene with Ortegas and Mbenga watching Spock talk to the Vulcan prosecutor.
That's really good.
That's a really good scene.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it like to me it's such classic Star Trek in its own way. Like they're sitting in the mess hall or the lounge and hanging out, and it kind of humanizes the characters. It's like non-pressure situation. It's a little character beat that, again, the non-serialized approach creates a lot of opportunities to kind of give the episodes room to do that. Like they're not trying to juggle this big storyline that they have to stretch and connect dots for 10 or 13 episodes. I think it gives them the room, just like TNG and Deep Space Nine and Voyager all had the room to take these little breather moments that are helping the story. It does help us. Like it tells us a lot about the Vulcan prosecutor, that he's not messing around. Like Spock doesn't like him and had no success trying to like logically reason with him behind closed doors. That tells us a lot what we need to know about what's going to come later in the trial. But in the moment, it feels kind of like a side moment that's played for laughs and humor and to endear the characters to us. And I think it works on all the levels. And it's confident. It's a sign of confidence from the show, I think, to be able to also like kind of sidestep and give the rest of the cast a little moment that they crush.
Yeah, because how many moments, like quiet little moments like that, do we have in Next Generation and Voyager
especially?
Yeah. So yeah,
really good. and funny, like genuinely funny. I thought the humor in that totally landed. So I really enjoyed that. Um, yeah.
No, I mean, there's plenty of those really great little moments even in this episode. Like I really do like seeing the rest of the cast giving their testimony about Una. I think they're again building more camaraderie.
Yeah.
Admiral April stuff,
Yes.
that
So
was
good.
so good. I
Yeah.
know people are talking about the how this episode really ends and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think the April stuff. I think there's some really good stuff
Oh
there.
man. Yeah. It does. I mean, it tells us it's kind of underrated. It's a lot of telling and not showing, which can be seen as like a no-no. But we get a lot of backstory here. We find out how Pike met Una. We found out about Una's kind of origins in Starfleet and her connections with April through that big extended sequence. We learned about some of the kinds of things that, and you said something talking about the Broken Circle, like this cowboy diplomacy era, and the sort of more Kirk time, like kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and General Order One's a little more of a guideline than a total. Like it's kind of at the discretion of the captain. It's a different era of Starfleet, and hearing about Captain April and these kinds of classic Star Trek kinds of adventures that could be a novel or an episode of another show. And these examples of him having to skirt, the regulation is it was really great, and I think I loved that sequence. I thought we learned a lot there. It was important to the show. It told us a lot about the characters, and it was good. It was dramatic. It was, really good courtroom action.
And then we get this little beautiful, quiet little scene after where April comes to Pike
Yeah.
and say, "What the heck?" And
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't take the
drink.
glass of
No.
yeah.
He's
That's
a little butthurt.
yeah. He was a lot better.
Yeah.
But again, we get those like little moments after these action sequences,
Mhm.
like that. I don't know, just really humanize
Yeah.
these characters.
And that's another like that not taking the glass and walking away kind of in a huff. I wonder if that'll linger. Like I'm curious. Like,
Yeah.
are there hard feelings? You would think maybe there would be. Like April is not happy. Like he kind of got hung out to dry there.
Yeah, but again, we're showing, not telling. Like
Yeah,
this
that
isn't
is yes.
a big long monologue heavy scene. This is just him, Pike offering him a drink and he doesn't take it, and so it's
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, I love all that. Yeah, and I thought the turn of having the trial start to edge toward we're going after Pike too. I thought they foreshadowed that really well, and when it started turning that way, it felt urgent. It felt like, oh crap, like this is not good. I thought that was really well written, really well handled. I think the Vulcan, again, going back to that scene, that little scene with Spock, where you don't even hear their conversation. When that Vulcan prosecutor stands up and starts, you're you're in trouble. Like this is about to this is about to be like the mic drop moment for the prosecution. They're going for the kill now when he stands up, and it's about to get real.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe where Spock was trying to reason with him a little bit, but yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, really good callback. Like you said, the kind of montage of the other testimony from La'an, Spock, and Benga. Little cool flashback to Q&A, the short trek that feels like forever ago, predating, Strange New Worlds even existing.
Show tunes.
Yeah, show tunes. Yep.
Yeah.
Really cool. I thought that was a really neat throw in. And really cool that they didn't forget about that. That was a completely different kind of crew. That was technically under like the Discovery umbrella still post season 2, and they've been really good about carrying that stuff over into Strange New Worlds, and that was a really pleasant surprise. It's cool to see the short trek like content. A lot of talk in Discovery World about Calypso, and is that going to get followed up on, and are they going to forget or not have a chance to reconcile that, and seeing something from Q&A all these years later get thrown in there is really, really cool and validating for the shorts. Yeah. What do you you kind of mentioned, you said something kind of at the beginning of the episode that maybe this goes down. Do you think this is the Stranger Worlds' best episode in your mind? Like, is it better than anything we got last season? Do you where do you kind of put this? It's hard because it's like
It's
old
hard
Trek.
to.
They're all so different.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
I'm
apples
not.
and oranges.
Yeah, I'm not ready to crown it just yet.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's some really like some other episodes that I just really feel like, but this one is too. Like it's hard. It's definitely in the
It's in the
conversation. I would
conversation.
say, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard too because like Strange New Worlds just only has 2 seasons, so
Hmm.
it's kind of hard to really crown it right away. And it's only been a week um, since I've
Yeah.
seen it, so it's hard to. So maybe when I come back and watch it a little bit later on, I think I'll be able to make a more definitive, pick. I'm sure
Yeah.
we're going to do some rankings here at the end of the season, but um, no, I think it's definitely in the conversation for um, best Stranger Worlds episode.
Hmm. Yeah, it's up there. I think I right now I might have it at like 3 or 4. A couple of the episodes from season 1, like on first blush, but I totally agree. I mean, it's 3 days old, and uh, I've seen it once. I haven't gone back and watched it again yet, um, but it felt good. I mean, it definitely felt right watching it. It had that. It had that. Sometimes you get that like this is a classic, kind of as it's happening, and that it kind
Feeling
of
as
felt
you're
like that.
watching it,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it feels right that it's kind of towards the top of the list at least. Yeah, it feels good to have this show back. I mean, it definitely is a winner. It's kind of the I think it's the perfect. I was telling somebody, it's kind of like it's got the best elements of all of the old Trek in my mind. Like it's got the TOS vibes that are obvious. It's got the structure of. I think when I think of the Next Generation and Voyager, the way that it bounces around with like putting a different character in the center seat, and you know the genre flexibility of those shows. I think it's got the emotional kind of continuity of Deep Space Nine. These things carry over episode to episode. Things that happen to characters don't get forgotten about, and it's got the prequel stuff that Enterprise got to do incorporated too. The sort of adding new context to and building to the original show. Like it's kind of it gets thrown around as like kind of like a throwback to TOS, but I think it's got the best of all of Star Trek kind of cooking inside of it, and obviously like the ambitious and cutting edge production values of Discovery and Picard and the current era is obviously on display every week too. So it's kind of the best of all worlds. It's great. I mean, it's sort. I love Discovery. I love Picard, especially post season 3. But this feels like. I mean, I can totally understand why a lot of folks are like, this is the show I've wanted for, the last since 2005, since it stopped in the last era, because of the episodic structure and the flexibility of it. The fact that we just got a swashbuckling adventure, the way you put it, and then a courtroom drama. And episodes 1 and 2 of the season is just feels, feels right and feels like classic Star Trek in a way that is really comforting and refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of at the pinnacle of Star Trek storytelling, where we've had these really episodic types of stories, and then we swing back to these really serialized, not just even Discovery, but even in season 3 of Enterprise,
Yeah.
very heavily serialized, and
Yeah.
um, we swung back to the serialized nature in Discovery, but now we're kind of caught in the middle of this like really perfect storm. I think it just again it's there's something for everyone if you really like that episodic type of storytelling and stories, you're gonna get it with the show. But if you like this really deep cut, really serialized story that we're gonna probably get, like stress free K mentions with some of the Gorn stuff,
Yeah.
you're gonna get that too. You're gonna get kind of like you said, Bill, best of both worlds of the
Mm-hmm.
storytelling aspects of it, and I just think it's gonna make for a really good season.
Yeah, I really do think that from that standpoint, it's the closest to Deep Space Nine, because Deep Space Nine had it was episodic.
Had that.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like every episode was a complete continuation of the next, even as the show got rolling in the sixth and seventh season. Their episodes were very different from each other in large portions of the show. But what was, setting it apart in those early days was the emotional through lines that were continuing through. Like when something big happened to a character, or something important to the story happened, it wouldn't get reset the next week. I mean, those are things that would continue to linger, and maybe it wouldn't get addressed in the very next episode, but maybe the next season it would. Maybe a little further down the line, several episodes away, it would get kind of brought back, or it was worn on the sleeve of an episode down the road. That's what it reminds me more of Deep Space Nine on that level than it does TNG or Deep Space or TOS, because of things like we're seeing with Spock and Chapel, and even in Benga and Chapel. I think the way that relationship has kind of continued to evolve, and it's less archetypal, like less, the characters are what they are each week, and it's kind of all new each week. But I think Stress Free K is right. I think the Gorn's going to be the big thing, and that to me, I think is going to be I also think that's going to be where the big battle is going to be waged in fandom. I think the hard reconcile that people are going to have is Arena. That's going to be the thing people are going to have to squint and figure out how, from a story standpoint, does that align. And the people who are really hung up and really dedicated to wanting the story continuity to like flow well, and stick together, I think are gonna. That's where the struggle is going to be with some of the things that might be coming down the pike with the Gorn. I think a lot of the character things that they're doing with Spock and Chapel, in particular, I really have a high degree of confidence that when it's all said and done, it will work well. Like, I think people will be pleasantly surprised with, like, you have to squint and do some headcanon to align just the aesthetic differences of the way these kinds of stories were portrayed in the 60s and the way they're portrayed in the 2020s. I'm glad in 2023 we're not playing Chapel as just a nurse who's pining after an emotionally unavailable guy. Like in 1966, that was par for the course. Normal. That's the way TV and that was expected.
Yeah.
In 2023, that would not fly. It wouldn't be considered sophisticated or progressive or realistic. I just don't think it would be. They can't do that, obviously. So I think you'll have to reconcile some of those things. But I think from a story standpoint, it'll largely coalesce if you're willing to, do some headcanon work.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Strange New World Season 2?
Not at this point. Just that I'm really looking forward to Thursday. I think Star Trek fandom and the state of the Star Trek universe, I think, needs another episode, because I think there's definitely some some very divisive stuff and some bad blood stuff said on Twitter. So I just
some gauntlets really turned down.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Thursday.
Yeah, me too. Do you know anything about it? Do you know what the episode's about or anything like that? Cool. Good.
No.
Good.
That's my strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good at that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. I'm good about avoiding big spoilers. I don't like to read detailed stuff, but I seek out like the flavors of what might be coming. So should be interesting. Looking forward to it. We'll definitely, kind of like we did with Picard. I think even while this is running, if we're here and talking about a different topic, which we generally will do, that we're not going to necessarily dedicate, the next 5 Trek Live episodes to recapping the episodes in this fashion. But we will check in on what's going on in Strange New World's world as part of our episodes. We might wrap up like we did with Picard with like a quick how we feeling and what do we think of the last few episodes. So stay tuned for that.
Yep. I want to thank everybody for watching. The discussion definitely doesn't have to stop here. If you don't want to dive into the sometimes divisive talk on Twitter with especially with Prodigy going on. There is plenty of positive stuff on our Discord servers. If you want to get hooked up, DM Bill and he can get you squared away. Um, but yeah, just keep the discussion going, and we'll look forward to next week. I want to thank everybody for watching,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.